So I've owned the JBL Charge 5 for years. It is the most used Bluetooth speaker in my house. It's been down the beach, it's been down the park, it's been covered in mud in the garden, it's been chucked in the pool, it's had salt water all over it. It's just been a rock solid Bluetooth speaker. I really enjoyed it. However, JBL have now released the Charge 6, which is an upgrade to the Charge 5. But it's also more expensive. So if you're looking at buying a Bluetooth speaker, which one of these should you get? Or if you've already got a Charge 5, then should you upgrade to the Charge 6? Well, that's what we're going to try and find out in this video. And I'm going to show you how you can get up to 35% off the retail price of these speakers later on as well. So let's check them out. First up, looking at the size and the design of these speakers, and they are both very similar in design. I mean, this is the design that JBL have been doing for several years now with their speakers, so really the Charge 6 is no exception. It is ever so slightly longer and wider than a Charge 5, which you can only really tell when you have them side by side. There is quite a significant weight difference between them though, because the Charge 5 has a weight of 2.1 pounds or 0.96 kilos compared to the Charge 6, which now weighs 3 pounds or 1.37 kilos. Other than that, they're both covered in this fabric grille. The control buttons on the top are pretty much the same, but they've just got a slightly different design. So on the Charge 5, you'll notice that you've got the power button and the Bluetooth pairing button in the middle, volume buttons either side, play pause button, and the party boost button, which we're going to get to later. On the Charge 6, I've now split it across 2 rows. You've got your power button, Bluetooth pairing, and your Auracast button across the top. We'll get to that later too. And then you've got your play, pause, and your volume up and down, which also double as your track forwards and backwards. Both of these speakers have passive radiators on either end, with the Charge 5 having these 3 different protruding rubber bumpers. On the Charge 6 now though, they've now got 4 rubber bumpers. And so because of those extra bumpers and just an all-round bigger, more robust design, the Charge 6 has been drop-proofed to 1 meter. Having said that, I have owned the Charge 5 for years, and as I said, it's been everywhere with me and I've had no problems with it. The back of the Charge 5 also has the USB-C charging port, and then under here we have a USB-A port if you want to connect something that needs a USB-A port for charging. It is just for charging though, you can't use it for music. On the back here of the Charge 6, you also have a USB-C charging port, but it can be used for something else as well, which we'll get into a little bit as well. And then underneath there is a slight difference as well. So the JBL Charge 5 has these rubber slits across here to help it stop moving around on the table when you're playing music. These can come off over time. It started to come off for me on one of them ever so slightly. Oh, and the more I do it, the more it's coming off. Yes, so don't do that. On the Charge 6 that has changed, you've now got these 2 bigger rubberized bars. That also stops it moving around, and it should be more robust than the thinner strips on the Charge 5. Other than that, the most obvious addition is the handle. Now this isn't fixed, you can take this off if you want to. So if you're going down the beach and you're trying to carry your speaker and your towels and your bag and a whole bunch of other stuff, well, it's just a little bit tricky with this, or I suppose you could just chuck it in your bag. However, with the Charge 6, you could just shove it across the top of your arm, grab your towels and all that kind of stuff. It's just a little bit easier to carry. Again, you can take this off if you don't want to use it. One thing I would say though is I don't think it's the most robust handle in the world. So you've only got this sort of thin material that's hooking over this button here. So I wouldn't go swinging it around. So not only do both of these speakers have a super rugged design, which means they're fairly bulletproof for everyday life, but they are also waterproof and dustproof as well. So the Charge 5 is IP67 dustproof and waterproof rated, and the Charge 6 is IP68 waterproof and dustproof rated. And really that difference between the waterproof ratings of these doesn't make much of a difference because both of these speakers float. The ability of both of these speakers to float also means if you happen to drop it in a pool or off the side of a boat, well, they're really easy to get out of the water again, which is something you can't say of some other JBL speakers like the Flip 7, for instance. Well, that just would sink straight to the bottom of the ocean. So if you're going to be using these on a boat, the Charge 6 or the Charge 5 is definitely one I'd consider. Now, not only can you connect to both of these speakers over Bluetooth, you can also use the USB-C port on the back of the Charge 6 to play music over a wired connection to this speaker. Now, that might be a killer feature for you if that's what you're looking for. One benefit of the JBL Charge range of speakers is that it can be used to charge other things. And it also means that these have a pretty hefty battery in them as well. So the Charge 5 has 20 hours of battery life built into it, plus you can use the USB-C port or the USB-A port in the back for charging things like your mobile phone, which is really handy if you happen to go out and about camping, down the park or whatever, and your phone starts to run out of power. You do get more power with the Charge 6. You now get 24 hours of battery life with the Charge 6, and you can still use the USB-C port in the back to charge whatever it's connected to. They're not the fastest things to charge though, and the Charge 5 especially. So there's no fast charging with the Charge 5. It takes 4 hours to charge up to full. The Charge 6 on the other hand takes 3 hours to charge up to full. Now that is still quite a long time, but fortunately this speaker also comes equipped with fast charging, where a 10-minute charge will give you 150 minutes of playback. Plus, if that wasn't enough, you can also enable playtime boost on this speaker, which will give you an extra 4 hours of playback. Now, I don't actually recommend you do that, because when you enable playtime boost on these speakers, and it's the same for any other JBL speaker that has that feature on it, it basically kills any bass that's in your speaker, so I'd recommend not doing it. Still, even without it, 24 hours of battery life on the Charge 6 is pretty good. It's not to say that the 20 hours of battery life on the Charge 5 is bad, it's just the Charge 6 is better. Sound-wise, there is a slight difference here with the Charge 5 giving you 40 watts of power, 30 watts in the woofer, 10 in the tweeter, and it has a frequency response range of 60 Hz to 20 kHz. The Charge 6 is slightly better. It will give you 45 watts of power, 30 watts from the woofer, 15 in the tweeter, and the frequency response is slightly lower, 56 Hz to 20 kHz. So in theory, on paper, you should get better bass response, albeit only slightly, in the Charge 6 over the Charge 5. And if you want to hear what both of these speakers sound like, then here's the sound test so you can hear how both of these sound for yourself. Now, do bear in mind you're watching a YouTube video over your speakers of a recording of these speakers, so it's not the same as if you're in the same room as these, but hopefully it gives you some idea of what they sound like. Do you think sounded the best? Let me know in the comments down below. Definitely when you start to push both of these speakers to high volumes, the Charge 5 does start to sound harsher than the Charge 6. But I thought you could definitely hear the extra bass in the 6 over the 5. I thought the treble was more subdued, like you could still hear it clearly, but it wasn't as harsh, especially at the higher volumes compared to the Charge 6 or the Charge 5. And so the Charge 6 also handled higher volumes better. Now, if you don't like how either of these sound, you can change how these sound in the JBL mobile app that both of these speakers are compatible with. The JBL Charge 5, because it is older, it only has a 3-band EQ in that mobile app. So you've got some control over the sound, but certainly not a lot. The Charge 6, on the other hand, comes with a 7-band custom EQ in the mobile app, which makes a massive difference for being able to customize the sound. If you like how they sound out the box, that's not going to make much of a difference, but if you're the type of person that likes to fiddle with sound and tweak the treble and the bass and everything else, that could be a big difference for you. Now, one thing that might be a deal breaker for you for both of these speakers is that there is only one woofer and one tweeter in both of these speakers. So both speakers are really mono speakers, they're not stereo, although that is the case for most portable Bluetooth speakers these days. However, one thing you can do is you can buy 2 of them and you can pair them up with each other to do a true left and right stereo channel. If you want to go do that, it just costs you twice the amount of money because you gotta buy 2 of them. One thing that JBL has changed between these 2 speakers is how they connect to other speakers. So with the Charge 5, you could use Party Boost to connect to a whole bunch of other JBL speakers to play the same music from all the speakers at the same time. However, JBL have now dropped Party Boost and all their new speakers come equipped with Auracast, so you can use Auracast to connect all of your JBL speakers together to play the same music. However, Auracast is not backwards compatible with Party Boost, so if you've got some older speakers, that's just something to bear in mind. If it's your first Bluetooth speaker, or you don't really care about the Party Boost or the Auracast functionality, it doesn't really make any difference. So the JBL Charge 6 does sound slightly better than the Charge 5. It does have slightly better battery life, and it's got a few more options that the Charge 5 doesn't. But the difference isn't massive. So I think if you've already got the JBL Charge 5, that unless you want some of the new features of the Charge 6, I don't think there's enough of a reason for you to upgrade from one to the other. But if you're looking at buying either of these, then these are significantly discounted on Amazon at the moment with up to 35% off. The Charge 5 is down to $120 and the Charge 6 is down to $135. And that is a significant saving from their retail price of $180 and $200 respectively. So I will leave purchase links to both of these in the description down below so that you can go check them out for yourself. If you do want to look at some other options though, then be sure to check on the link up here somewhere. Thanks for watching. If you have enjoyed the video, please don't forget to like and share it. Consider subscribing if you're not. And as always, I'll see you in the next one.